Hi there, my name's Phil Calvert, and a warm welcome to the final video in the Financial Advisor Mastermind and Challenge. Over the past week, over 30 leading experts, financial planners, and consultants to the profession have shared amazing insights into just what makes a world-class financial advice business. In my final interview, I talked with New York Times columnist and creator of The Behavior Gap, Carl Richards. We spent the first 20 minutes talking about his art and renowned sketches, and then we moved on to meatier issues, starting with his assessment of the current state of the world of financial planning.
I had to turn around and go back out into the alley and sort of take care of some butterflies in my stomach. Like I was so, I saw through the window people standing in front of art, kind of pointing at my art, kind of chuckling. And I was like, oh, look, they're laughing at, you know what I mean? And I get in and people loved it. It was crazy. So yeah, done that. I did an exhibition at the, what do you guys call it? The Mansion House?
In London.
Yeah, at the Mansion House with Greg Davies when he did that crazy opera, financial opera. So we did an exhibition there. That was another crazy. The Mansion House, I don't know if you know this, Phil, but you don't put nails in the walls in the Mansion House.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So when we showed up to put stuff up, you know, the guys who were in charge of, we had to build a new wall, and the guys who were in charge of doing it were laughing at it, and I had to come in. They were like, because there was a Dutch master, right? And then my chalkboard, and they were sort of chuckling. I was like, hey fellas, could you just hang the stuff up, right? Like don't laugh at it while you hang it up. So anyway, that's the story behind the exhibitions.
So if you were doing the State of the Union address about the world of financial planning right now, what would be your main points that you'd be making?
This is such an interesting paradigm to me, because I'm gonna use, and I know your audience particularly will bristle a little bit at these if we use these words incorrectly, right? When we say like industry versus profession,
yeah, sure,
planner versus advisor. So here's you need to understand this before I tell you sort of what I think the state of the industry is I know there are professionals out there, right? People who are serious, they're technically competent, they've got training, hopefully I'm imagining they've got one of the accepted designation in our industry or in our profession. But here's the problem. Nobody knows the difference between you and the guy or girl next to, well, and I'm going to use guy in this case, the guy who should be selling shoes but is pretending to be a financial planner. Or even worse, like, well, used cars, like whatever, like that guy should not be in our industry. But nobody knows. So we're all part of this traditional financial services industry. There is no way to look up in the Google machine real financial planner, right?
Yeah.
So if you understand that as context, then you'll understand what I'm about to say. Never has what we do been less valuable and at the same time more valuable. And so what I mean is like 95% of the industry is totally worthless. I don't know if that's the right number. Don't email me about the percentage. I just know it's pretty high. All those people pretending to be financial planners. And at the same time, the people that are probably listening to this, right? This select little group, I call it the secret society of real financial planners. It's never been more valuable because what the world has never felt, I don't know if it's true or not, but certainly our perception of the world, as I travel around the world speaking to consumers, I don't like that word. As I travel around the world speaking to humans, your potential clients, never have they felt more anxious, right? Never have they felt more confused. Never has it been more difficult to sort through the noise. So the job of a real financial planner has never been more valuable. Now the problem is, if I can just be candid, here's the problem, is most of us, and I'm going to say most of you with 4 fingers pointing back at me, most of you don't know the difference, right? We haven't figured out what our value is. If you think your value is taking somebody through a 17-point risk tolerance questionnaire, you're cooked. Maybe you can fake it for another few years, but if you think your value is asset allocation and security selection, and even some of the technical planning issues, insurance, and some of the really technical stuff that only pros can do, that's still not your value, right? That's all table stakes.
Yeah.
It's a requirement, but not sufficient, because what your value is to help me make sense of this uncertainty, right? To be a guide. I think so many of us are still, even the really good planners, are still defending an outdated map instead of being a guide in a changing landscape. And what I need is a guide to tell me the truth, help me believe that uncertainty is reality, and then say to me, by the way, you know, just because the last 11 mountain passes I've been over, there's been a lake, doesn't mean there will be a lake over the 12th. But if there's not, Carl, I got the tools in my backpack here. We'll figure it out together. Like, and I need somebody who has not only the technical chops of that, but the human, emotional, empathetic skills, both the science and the art. That, well, is like the coolest job in the world.
Yeah.
And if you can, the problem is nobody walks into your office and goes, I want that. Right? They don't even know to ask for that. So if you can figure out how to lead them there so they can go, oh my gosh, I don't even worry about that anymore. Oh my gosh, well, how do you put a value on that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that, to me, that's the state of the industry right now. We better get clear about what our real value is, and it's not. I promise you, it's not what you think it is.
Mm. I guess with all the noise that you refer to there, trust is part of that wave of noise that's out there. And when you've got reports from the likes of Edelman with their trust barometer still saying year after year that financial services is the least trusted industry in the world. And I know they're not just referring to financial advice, they're talking about the whole financial services industry. What can real financial planners do to strengthen that whole trust piece?
Yeah, and it's even more complex, Phil, right? Because you can't use that word in our industry. Like, if you say to me, you can trust me, right? I say to you, something must be wrong. Like, why are you, like, if you put that in your, like, you know, whatever, the front of your brochure that you're going to send out to all your prospective clients, it certainly has an older white couple walking on a beach with a sailboat in the background, and you say you can trust me, right? We can't do that anymore. So, but you're exactly right. At the core of this is empathy and trust. That's our real currency, is empathy and trust. And I think the only way to do this, I've spent a ton of time thinking about this and working on that problem. Okay, if you can't say trust, like if you can't use the words that indeed represent your most valuable thing, how do you do it? And the way you do it is just beautiful and lovely, and it's just like compound interest, right? Like one simple interaction at a time.
Yeah.
Right? You give the next person you meet in a professional setting a reason to almost scratch their heads, like confused by the grace of their interaction, because you know what they're expecting. They find out you're in this industry, and remember, they don't know. Like, there's no words you can say. There is no magic elevator pitch. I don't care what anybody else tells you. There are no words you can say that will get them to go, oh, really, you're different, right? So if we can give them, so when they find out what you do, especially if they volunteer to come meet with you, they're going to walk in with their hands on their wallets, right? Like protecting themselves dearly. And if you can give them, because what they're expecting you to do is throw prescriptions at them. I know you don't like green. That's fine. Phil, I got blue, right? If you give them instead a remarkable experience of being heard, you ask really good questions and you listen really carefully, and you like, this is a blank slate, right? I have no I'm not even going to attempt to get you to understand anything. I just am here to understand you. And they leave, and you haven't tried to sell them anything. And what I want them doing is walking to the car, scratching their heads a bit, confused by the grace, and saying, oh my gosh, what did we just go through? For the first time in my life, I just felt like it was okay to have a discussion about money.
So
right?
What would you, in that first meeting, someone comes along into the office for the very first time, what are you going to be doing to build that trust right from the start?
Yeah. Like I don't feel you've either done your homework or you're just really smart, because like these are all hot button issues. Like if you wanted to press a button to get me started, you would ask me all the questions you're asking, and it's only 8 a.m. So first meeting, I think the first meeting is the golf swing of our business. And what I mean by that is like, it's if I were going to get training and coaching on anything, I would not get training and coaching on marketing. I'd get training and coaching on the first meeting. And then worry about the marketing piece later, like how to get people to the first meeting. But I'd get training coaching there, because if we do this right, you can give somebody, like Seth Godin says, you can give them a remarkable experience. And he then says, like, worth remarking about. You don't even have to ask for referrals if you give somebody a beautiful experience. So here's what I would be doing, and I would not be doing what you're currently doing. I'm looking at you, and not you, Bill, but your listeners. And by the way, I feel like part of my job is to play like this weird mix between Zen Buddhist monk and drill sergeant. And so I know I get all up in people's faces about stuff, and it's because I care a lot about this stuff, and I've made every one of these mistakes. So here's what you're probably doing now. If you're anything like the rest of us in this industry, clients or potential clients to be, I like to call them, are walking in, and you think you have a well-intentioned belief that your job is to build trust in that first meeting. And you think, again, well-intentioned, and you've probably been taught that the best way to build trust is to talk about yourself. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. Here's how long we've been in the industry. Look at all my degrees and diplomas. We have the biggest computers of anybody in the industry. Our staff. Here's how, like you want to talk about a totally insignificant thing that we all say. Here's how much money we manage. Here's how many clients we have. Like that whole thing. We spend 20 minutes talking about ourselves. Now, I just want you to think about that. I know it's well-intentioned, but I'm going to make a claim, and I'm inviting you to test it. That does the opposite of build trust. Like we think it builds trust, but it doesn't. And let me just give you a couple examples if you don't believe me. Imagine that your 12-year-old daughter needs brain surgery, and you go to meet with the brain surgeon, and they spend the first 15 minutes. I went to Johns Hopkins. I've got 12 years of training. I've got the sharpest scalpels. Our staff's amazing. We've performed on 682 people, and only 2 have died. If the brain surgeon felt like there was a need to convince you that they were skilled and talented, you would get a new brain surgeon. If you went on a first date, and most of your listeners, particularly your female listeners, will not have to imagine this, but imagine going on it, because they probably had this experience. Imagine going on a first date, and I said that specifically, that females listening to this probably won't have to imagine. Imagine being on a first date and having the other person talk for a half an hour about themselves. There's no second date. So I'm just suggesting that trust is not a function of the quantity of the time you spend with someone. It's a function of the quality of the experience. And one thing John Bowen at CEG says that I'll always remember, which is people will judge you by the quality of the questions you ask. So what if we flipped that on its head and said the first meeting, the goal, here's a new rule for you. Here's a test. Here's a challenge. It's not my official challenge, by the way. Here's a test or challenge. See if everything that comes out of your mouth in the first meeting has to end with a question mark. Right? See if you timed who had their mouth open. So if you timed the amount of time you had your mouth open during the first meeting, let's say the meeting's an hour, see if you can get it to 5 minutes of you talking and 55 minutes listening. You won't be able to. I've tried, you won't, but I bet right now it's 45 or 50 minutes of you talking. And I know there's a bunch of people out there like, oh yes, no, I'm way better than. Try it. Try it. You'll be shocked. You'll be shocked. So that's
I'm
what I
trying to
would do.
keep.
That's what I would do in this first meeting.
Yeah,
Is,
I know Bill Backrack has a question that he asks, and you've got I think a variation on that. Is that right?
yeah. So Bill, and I, every time we present this, we try to make sure we give credit where credit is due. Bill's question sort of in my head mashed with Simon Sinek.
Oh, okay.
Start with why. I just love why. Now I know that if it's not used in the hands of a skilled question asker, the coaching community says why is feels like an interrogation. But I don't think it does when I say something like, Phil, tell me. So the question, and I'm not a question zealot, by the way, because I think George Kinder has amazing set of 3 questions. And if you're good at asking those, oh my gosh, I mean, who wouldn't want to follow George's lead? Dan Sullivan has a great question that's called the Dan Sullivan question, right? Phil, if you and I were meeting 3 years from today, what would have to happen both personally and professionally in order for you to feel like this was a success? Well, yes. Unbelievable. Backrack's question, what is important about money to you? I've just taken Simon Sinek's why and said, why, right? Phil, help me understand why is money important to you, right? And then we just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. But I think one of the advisors I was talking to the other day, planners, that's really, really good, said to me his favorite question is just simply like after 30 seconds of like, thanks for coming today. It shows how serious you are about making good decisions with money. Why don't we dive in? My goal today is to ask you a whole series of questions just to really clearly understand where you are. So let's start here. Phil, what brought you in today? And then be quiet. And then the follow-up to that is amazing, is simply saying, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And you keep doing that. And when you feel like you've got a clear understanding of what brought them in today, my favorite question ever as part of this is, oh, how do you think I could help with that? Like, that's amazing, because it's essentially telling you what they want out of the relationship. And then, of course, you can say, okay, great. Like, in order for us to work on that, do I have that right? You can say, in order for us to work on that, we've got to understand some things first. Like, we've got to get a clear picture of where you are today, and maybe sort of some guesses at where you want to go. I use that word on purpose. Notice I didn't say goals. Some guesses on where you want to go. So let's start with, where are you today? Right? Tell me a little bit about boom, 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 boom. Right? And so I'm not a question zealot. I'm just saying, please start asking questions. Good questions. Please get comfortable with the silence. Phil, just for all of your listeners, or viewers, remember, you're going to bump into this crazy thing called awkward silence if you ask a good question. And you're going to interpret it as you've done something awkward. I'm asking you to flip that on its head and lean into that space and go, a good question by definition is one that somebody may go, oh, Phil, that's a really good question. Right? And they may have to think about it. We want you asking questions somebody's never been asked before. That's how they'll walk to the car confused by what just happened to them, by the grace. Like, oh my gosh, that person got me to think about something I'd never even thought about. That's so different than what I thought. I thought they were going to sell me an annuity. Right?
Yeah. I think
my hope.
By definition, a lot of people going to see a financial planner will have in the back of their mind that this is going to be complex, it's going to be difficult, we're going to be dealing with numbers, and they maybe are looking for some sort of outcome, or they have a problem that they're looking to be solved. Yet you're a real advocate of simplifying things, aren't you? How do you suggest that advisors actually do that when their very nature is in many ways to grapple a complex issue?
Yeah, fight like hell to do it. And all I mean is, it's like a garden, and you've got to continually weed it. Like, you're slipping into complexity and industry jargon. It's something you've just got to fight, because it's so easy to do, and it's human nature. you'll do things like, oh, Phil, I'll be describing to you as a client that risk, I'll be using this word risk, and you'll be kind of looking at me with a blank stare. And I'll try to make it better by going, Phil, standard deviation.
Great.
Or volatility, right? Like, just fight. Like, just realize you can't make this too simple. I think advisors are worried, and rightly so. I think, and I've been getting warnings about this for going on 20 years now. People have been warning me about this land called too simple, right? If you make it too simple, no one will need you anymore. If you make it too simple, you'll put yourself out of business. If you make it too simple, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of thought that, I was like, man, everybody's so scared of this place called Too Simple. I wonder what it's like. So I bought all the maps I could. I hired guides. I talked to everybody I could. And I'm there. Like, I'm at the place that everybody says is too simple. And I'm like, Phil, listen, the water's fine. Like, come on in. There's no monsters here. I have been shocked. So I would just suggest push the limit. I would suggest go back to all your marketing stuff, your quarterly reports, your letters you send to clients, everything you have, and say to just go through it really. Like, if you let me, I've done this with people. We've done this on some really high-end consulting work that you would all recognize, where it's just our job to take a brochure, an educational piece, or a slide deck of a CEO of companies you would recognize, and pull stuff out. And here's the question I ask. If I took this away, first of all, what's the main point? You only get one. Like, if I have an hour keynote, this is the question I sort of think in my mind. When everybody leaves out the back door, if somebody were standing there with a clipboard saying, what's the one thing you took away today? And you were writing it down, what do I want that one thing to be? And I only get one. You don't get 10. Your PowerPoint presentations right now, Mr. Financial, Mr. and Mrs. Financial Planner, go pull them up. There's 10 bullet points per page. They're 12-point font. You only get one for the whole slide deck, right? I just go through and say, what can I take away? What can I pull out? What was that quote from The Little Prince? Perfection is not achieved when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. That's
lovely.
Yeah. So I just strip it away, strip it away, strip it away. It feels, you're like, oh no, then I'd be naked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how simple can you get it?
I'm conscious of your time, so I just want to ask two quick questions, which probably are difficult to answer quickly. But we've got in our community a lot of financial planning firms. We've got some great financial planning firms, award-winning firms, and we've got lots of people kind of in the middle. But everybody knows that everybody can get better at what they do. Can you give us maybe just one thing then, that a tweak that a firm could do that would really start to take them up to another level?
Yeah, I think like the easiest thing to do, sorry, let me rephrase that. The simplest thing to do, not necessarily to be confused with easy, is to get really clear. And I guess in our industry, we could call this niche marketing. But I think of it differently than most people think of it. I think of find a really, so here's the claim. We've got enough time to talk about this for a bit. Here's the proposition, the claim, the declaration I want to make. No, so let's talk about marketing to get yourself to another level, getting new clients and new business development, right? So here's the claim I want to make. No one cares about your solutions. They care about their problems.
Right.
And I'm going to, I could repeat that 100 times, like looking straight into the camera. No one cares about your solutions. It's really hard for us to accept that because we think, oh, our solutions, they're everything. No, they're not. No one cares about your solutions. They care about their problems. You could say no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care, and sort of get to the same place. So if you put that set of glasses on and you think about growing, I think of it about scaling impact. A lot of us in this industry, even though we're entrepreneurs and sure money profit equals permission and we've got to grow our firms, a lot of us are thinking still like this is a calling and I want to make an impact. So the easiest way for me to think about scaling impact and move a firm would be simply to say, find a problem that you're really interested in solving. Then develop deep expertise in that problem and share it publicly as you go. So this is the simplest way. This is part of a really expensive training program that we run, and you get it here. Here's an example. If I were starting a firm again, the problem that, and by interesting problem, I mean a problem that you're interested in solving, right? Like I love entrepreneurs. I love starting things myself. I love the businesses that we're growing. I love talking to them. I love everything about them. You could love architects. Like it doesn't matter. For me, entrepreneurs, I would say entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, and I would even maybe narrow it down. Entrepreneurs who've had a successful exit. And you might even want to define that. Entrepreneurs with a successful exit over X. I don't know. I would go interview. I'd find 10 people who have unique insight into that. I would go interview those 10 people. And I would ask them really insightful questions. I'd pretend like you're an academic now. You're not selling anything. You can't. If you can't do this right, don't do it because it would ruin it for the rest of us. You just honestly have to have a goal of understanding the problem. Go interview them. After you do 3 of them, you'll be like, all right, I know what I'm going to hear in the 4th one. You do 10 of them, you'd be amazed. Do 50 of them. That sounds like a podcast. Fantastic. Right? Start a blog post about it. When you're done with 10, you'll have easy to write a beautiful white paper. You do 10 more, you'll discover new ideas. You'll write another white paper. You have 5 white papers written, you roll them together, you've just written a book on entrepreneurs with a successful exit. Insert accountants, insert architects, insert school teachers, insert like whatever it is, but you've got to understand the problem first. And then do that publicly. I'm just a big fan of all of that being a byproduct that we can share with the world as we do it. You will be blown away by what you discover and the impact you'll have.
Yeah. Is getting to the nub of people's problems, is that a new skill set? I mean, I guess we're coming back to asking great questions, but it's easy for us to tell and explain our solutions, but it's a different skill set, isn't it?
No, it's really true. And now we can have the little kumbaya moment and say, hey, I understand. Like I can empathize with, like, I'm being a drill sergeant telling you to do this. And this happens to me every time. You know, there'll be 1,000 advisors at a keynote, and I'll give this, and about 15 minutes in, I'll see that, like, yeah. And I'll see the moment where it goes, wait, but I don't know how to do that, right? Like, I don't physically know how. And yeah, so it's hard, right? Just practice asking good questions. So like, easy, like what I always do for this particular interview with the entrepreneur, for instance, is I just say, hey, I'm interested in understanding the challenges, the unique challenges of entrepreneurs with a successful exit. Would you mind if we get together? And I always use coffee as the excuse. I don't even really drink coffee, but a coffee meeting can go 5 minutes or it can go 60 minutes. And it's okay, right? So don't do lunch, because if this isn't going well and you're 10 minutes in, you still got 50 minutes, the food hasn't even gotten there yet. So coffee, do you mind if we get together for coffee and I just ask you a couple questions? And I would just start with questions. Just practice. Like the questions could be, tell me what you did that worked. Are there any major mistakes that you made or you see others making?
Yeah.
Like, who else should I talk to? You're just asking, what, if you could wave a magic wand, that's my favorite question, by the way. If you could wave a magic wand and create the best financial planning experience for somebody like you, what would it look like?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the kind of, so just be gentle with yourself, but do not hide. Like, that's the part where the drill sergeant shows up. There's no hiding anymore, because I know what this is all about. This is not about tactics. It's about fear. Like, we'll all hide behind, I don't know how to do that. Look, there's 67,000 books that will tell you how to do that.
Sure.
What you're really hiding behind is, oh, what color should my font be? What should my logo be? You're really hiding because you're scared.
Yeah.
and you're scared to go make the impact that we have to have you making if the world's going to get any better at this crazy thing called money.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's not about tactics. It's our favorite thing to ask. In fact, all our training programs, that's our goal. We want to leave you no place to hide. Yeah. So then we can get down to what it's really about, which is fear. So
yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now, Carl. Thank you. We've been asking everybody if they could set our viewers a challenge that they might want to take on. It could be something big, little, over the next week, over the rest of their life. What would be the challenge that you'd want to set to our financial advice viewers?
Yeah, let's just on that same note, like stop hiding. Now here, let's make it concrete so we can get some action. And I would love people like 30 days from the time that you read this. I'm sure Phil would love to hear it, but I would certainly love to hear it. You can use the email address hello@realfinancialadvisors.com, and advisors with an O, realfinancialadvisors.com. Send me how it goes. Here's what I would say. Find one thing. Like find one way to do some of your work in public. And let's just because I know some of you will hide. Some of you will know, like, okay, I already do a podcast. Cool. That's great. I already have a blog. That's great. That's fine. Find one more. Like reach out. Those of you who are already doing public work, reach out to okay. So those of you who are already doing public work, here's your challenge. You probably already know who they are. Find the person who writes the most respected personal finance column and you can go as big as you want, right? Like depending on where your influence is now, if it's on the local level, reach out to the person who writes in your local paper about personal finance. If that's something that will scare, I don't know. Here's how we could do this to make it easy. There's something that you want to do. Like I know there is. You already know what it is. You've been thinking about it. You think like if I could just do that one thing, it would make an impact in my life and my business and in my community. Like identify that one thing. Email Phil and I mean, I don't know if you want to email Phil, but I love these. Somehow tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it and then do it. Yeah. If you've done no work in public, set up a blog. If you have to, just set up a Medium account, right? Like find some place to do something in public. Write something that scares you. Share that story you just shared. Do something in public. So the challenge is stop hiding. Stop hiding. Find a way to prove to me that you stopped hiding. Brilliant.
Carl Richards, thank you so much for your time today. You've been very generous indeed. Some really great insights in there. And are you coming over to the UK at all soon?
We were there last year. We were there last year, and I don't have any immediate plans, but I want to get back as soon as possible. It's actually on the list of places that we may want to end up spending a couple of years after we're done here in New Zealand. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. For the benefit of everyone watching, you can take up Carl's challenge. You'll have the opportunity after this video to join a private forum where you can look over all the challenges that our guests have set and pick the ones that you want to go for. You can ask questions, share how you are getting on, and you can get accountability partners as well. So once again, Carl Richards, thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated and great to see you.
Yeah, Phil, what a great gift you're giving the world with this. Thank you.